Welcome back to the Sideline Live podcast. You can follow us over on Twitter and Instagram at the Sideline Live. We'd love to hear from you. On episode 47, I am delighted to be joined by Cork Senior footballer and medical student Sean Powter. On this episode, we discuss the difference between intercounty and club football, habits, book recommendations, learning from the best players in the country, and so much more. I really enjoyed chatting with Sean, so I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hi Sean, thanks a million for coming on the podcast.
No hassle, it's good to be here.
Before we get into everything, would you be able to give a little bit of an introduction for the listeners who might not know who you
are? So my name is Sean Powter. I'm a Cork Senior footballer who's currently studying medicine up in Limerick.
Very good. You're also a fellow podcast host. Talk us through a little bit of that.
Well, that was kind of a COVID kind of treat, I suppose. But I did one with my classmate, Seamus Fox. He's a physio, so I thought it was going to be cool enough to kind of host my own podcast. And I think we had 6 or 7 episodes, just kind of talk about sport and stuff, which was cool enough, to be fair.
Yeah, a bit of crack. Yeah, they were good episodes. Would you go back to it maybe when you're a little bit less busy?
I probably will. If the sport and kind of medicine calms down a bit at some stage, I'll probably give Seamus a text saying, you up for another episode? But at the moment, I'm flat out, so I'll leave it off, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. Growing up, when did you start dreaming of playing for Cork, and who got you involved in football and hurling?
I've kind of always dreamt of playing for Cork, even when I was like 2 or 3. I remember my mum telling me a story of kind of out my back garden pretending I was like Donnacha O'Connor and Daniel Gouling and them. But I think one of the main ones was my neighbours, Colin Corkery, you know, the kind of famous Cork footballer. So I was friends with his son. So I used to go down to the pitch kicking with him out the whole time. So I kind of, through my parents and him, it was my dream to play for Cork.
And when did you start to get involved with sort of development squads? What age was that around?
I think I made the first development squad when I was about under 15, I think. But I was I was on the kind of B panel all the way up. Up until about minor. And I think like schools football actually brought me on massively. I played with Rochestown College, and we got to the current re-final where we lost to Dingle, who had like the kind of the Gainies and the Mark O'Connor now, who's over playing with Geelong, and Brian Begley, Thomas Sullivan, all kind of Kerry senior footballers. So that's kind of where I kind of got confidence in myself to play. I know I can play at that level,
And it was the confidence one of the biggest reasons that held you back, maybe where you were on the B teams, or was it maybe physically or skill wise you just weren't up to the level at the time?
I'd say it was a bit of kind of everything, I suppose. I didn't really back my ability until I knew I was like marking the best players and I was kind of beating them. I was like, Jesus, I'm actually as good as these players. But up until then, you'd always kind of question, Jesus, am I good enough to mark him? And without school football, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at now at the moment.
Okay, very good. You got involved in the minor panels. You're a dual player, hurler and football. Talk us through that, trying to balance everything as well as Leaving Cert. It was a busy year.
It was. So with minor, I think it was minor wasn't my Leaving Cert year. It was my fifth year, so it actually wasn't too bad. Okay. But I got called into the senior footballers the year I was doing my Leaving Cert. I made my debut the day before I did maths paper 2.
Right.
Against Tipperary. So
how did the maths paper go?
the maths paper went well enough, but the match we lost to Tipperary for the first time in like 60 years. So
sugar.
It was a great to play for Cork and make my debut at such a young age. Yeah. My mother wasn't impressed though, but
yeah. What was that conversation like? Being like, oh well, the match is Monday, but sure, we match Sunday.
To be fair, I don't think she had much of a choice. She kind of knew what my dream was to play for Cork, and nothing was going to kind of stop me, even if it was my Leaving Cert.
Yeah. What was it like going in with your heroes and making your debut and just trying to balance really everything? Because it sounds like, it does sound like a lot.
It was kind of a shock to the system. The first session in, I remember I was marking Paul Kerrigan and he scored about 2-4 off me, and I was like, Jesus, my Cork career will be short-lived here. But you kind of grow into it and grow into a bit of confidence. And then I remember I was kind of like, look, I'm here now. I don't know how long I'll be here. I'll just give it a whack. And I kind of just played with a kind of free mind. And I kind of feel like that kind of helped me a lot as well.
Okay, yeah. Did you sit in someone's seat in the first training session, or did you manage to avoid that?
No, I didn't. To be fair, there was Owen Cadigan was in there. He was my club mate, so I
Oh,
sat
grad.
next to him, and he kind of minded me for the first 2 years I was in there.
Good,
But
good.
after that, I got close to kind of everyone. Like I'd be very friendly now with Donegal O'Connor and them now. So
Very good. Yeah. And you spoke about there kind of playing with freedom and kind of that free mind. Is that something that I think maybe younger players would be overlook and try not to get too caught up in, oh, I'm playing for the Cork Senior football team and making my dream, whereas you kind of came in with that freedom that obviously didn't hold you back then, that mindset.
yeah, like that would be one thing I'd say is like I remember I was listening to a I think it was a Johnny Wilkinson podcast, and he
Yeah.
talks about like when was the best time you enjoyed sport, and it's like when you're young and you just don't care what happens. And I kind of that kind of I for the last 2 or 3 years I was kind of missing that enjoyment, and then I kind of listened to that podcast before he played Kerry in November of last year, and I kind of got that back into my game, and I kind of felt like I'm back enjoying my
Mm-hmm.
football again.
Mm-hmm. You went to UCC and did neuroscience. For the listeners who don't know what that is, what is neuroscience? What do you actually study?
You kind of study like emotions and it kind of the runnings of your brain and how your brain works.
Okay.
It's a kind of wishy-washy kind of subject, but it's basically about like how your nervous system controls the rest of your body, that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah. You mentioned on your podcast before you learned a lot about kind of how the brain works, and one of them was like visualization. The brain doesn't know if something's imagined or actually happens. Talk us through how you use visualization maybe in the week leading up to, let's say, a match or even training sessions. I don't know if you use it for that.
Yeah, like the brain doesn't know the difference between you imagining a situation and like the actual situation happening. So like before a big game, I'd always kind of visualize marking. Like if I know I'm marking a player now, I'll visualize marking that player. I'll visualize kind of scoring, and it's really weird. Like you go into a game and the exact same thing you picture happens, and you're like, Jesus, this really does work, like kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And do you visualize something going wrong, or do you try to keep it just to the positives?
I to be honest, like try and keep it to the positives, but I
Okay,
always have like kind of a reset, just kind of next ball. If something does go wrong, I kind of just like, right, that's done, move on, because
okay.
I don't think you can dwell on a mistake in the match, because the next ball will come in 10 seconds later, and you don't want two mistakes in a row. Like,
Yeah. As a defender, do you find that to try keep positive and to keep your momentum that you kind of accumulate small wins? Is that something that you're conscious of?
yeah, like even like say if a player's running at you and you just even turn him a small bit, you take that as it, right, that's good defending. Next ball again. Like even if he makes a run and you stop his run, like small things like that is kind of 1-0, 2-0, kind of you're counting
Okay.
in your head. That's I'm up 1-0 here kind of thing. But when you're in the game, it's hard to kind of think about those things. You're just thinking, right, where should I be? Where's the next ball gonna go? Where's my man? That kind of stuff.
Okay, okay. And do you use you apart from, let's say, when something goes wrong, would you use any sort of prompts or visual aids? Like I know the Tyrone lads, some of them had, I think Conor Myler had a couple of words written on his wrist or something. Is that something you've kind of delved into at all?
It has when I came back from my hamstring, I kind of wrote how many days I was missing for the Kerry game. I think I was missing for 100. I missed 1,365 days of championship football. So that was my first championship
Jesus.
game, and I just wrote that in my hand to kind of just realize how long it took to get back here to just enjoy it. So that was what I had against Kerry.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Talking about your injuries, was it after the international rules? Was it you kind of had the hamstrings injuries?
Yeah, so I literally just came back from the international rules, and it was the first league game down the new park, and I just went to kick a ball down the sideline against Tipperary, and just kind of heard a click,
Yeah.
and I didn't really feel anything like that before, so I was like, Jesus, what's this kind of scenario? But then I got a scan the next day, and it kind of showed a massive hamstring tear, so I was in a bit of bother there.
Yeah. And what leg? That because you did both legs in the end, but what leg did it start off with?
It started off with the right leg, my kicking leg, so it was,
Okay.
yeah, that was the first kind of mechanism.
And how long did it take to get back from that injury?
That one took 4 months to get back for training, and then my first training session back, the exact same thing happened again. So I was back to kind of square one again.
God, what's it like
And
when it happens again and knowing what goes into it? Is it better or worse knowing what's ahead?
Oh, definitely worse. Definitely
Okay.
worse than knowing knowing what lies ahead of you. But I also think if I didn't get back each time, I probably wouldn't be playing, because it kind of gave you the kind of sense of what you're missing. Like if say if I was out for 2 years, I probably wouldn't have got the sense of what like playing for Cork was again, kind of
I
thing.
know what you
If
mean.
that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Yeah, and then you came back from both of them. Did you go to the UK for the right one, or did you wait till you did the other leg?
I did the right one again, and then they were like, "Look, we don't know what's happening here." So I went over to 3 or 4 different people over in England, and they kind of sent me on a rehab program. And I went to a surgeon as well, and he was like, "Look, you can rehab it, and the option of surgery will always be there." So we kind of felt, let's try and rehab it again, and
Yeah,
then we got the right leg perfect, and then the left one went.
yeah. Is there a reason why you kept doing it? Is there like actual physical reason, or was it just stroke of bad luck?
Um, they don't know.
Okay,
There's like everyone has a kind of idea. So I just kind of, I'm at the moment, I'm just trying to tick every box.
okay,
But they're saying just because I'm kind of quick, and just because I've had previous hamstring injuries, I'm more prone to having them again. So I just got
okay.
to kind of manage my kind of workload and make sure I kind of keep up the strength in both legs.
How did you find the motivation side of things? Because I'm at the tail end of a very long injury, 2 years out, and the loneliness is something that you don't really think of at the beginning, and going to the gym by yourself and you're so used to the team environment. I know back training, but it's so shit until because you're by yourself. How did you find that experience?
Um, Initially, like the first injury was actually okay, because it's kind of like a new kind of,
You were
I'm injured
excited
here.
by having a
Yeah,
break,
you're
was
kind
it?
of excited to
Yeah.
kind of see, it's a new scenario. You're like, geez, what's this kind of thing? But when it
Yeah.
came fifth, sixth, seventh time, you're like, fuck this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like you do spend a lot of time in your own head. And I don't think
Mm.
people who haven't been injured understand what it's like to be injured.
Yeah.
Like you go from playing with 40 lads to you and the physio for 3 times a week, 1 hour a week. And then, like, to be fair, the man, like, when you're injured, no one really gives a shit about you.
Yeah.
It's kind of the bog basic way of putting it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Luke Keeney was saying, if you don't train in the GA, you're nobody, and it's true. And do you know what? I felt that as well, and it's really hard. And I found when you're trying to set new goals, like you're so used to playing well, getting a starting spot, and then win matches. But when you're injured, it's like a whole different level of goals. You're trying to hit like a certain squat or like certain weight.
Yeah.
How did you set yourself little goals along the way?
Yeah. To be fair, I was lucky to have Johnny Holland, the Munster former rugby player, who he had to retire with hamstring injuries. And I was chatting to him. I was like, how did you kind of stay positive with everything? And he was just like, I just set small goals for myself. So with him, I kind of work with like body fat, kind of like with every kind of gym session, I try to like up it, like even 2.5 kg, try and build it up every time. And I think if you focus on kind of the process rather than, okay, 3 months down the line, I'll be back. If you just focus on kind of next Tuesday or next Thursday, it's a lot easier, but it's
Yeah.
still bloody hard. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was the one that said, give it one more crack, because you were going to pack it in at one stage for football, were you?
yeah, I've had that conversation a few times now with Johnny and with my parents, and I actually had the conversation again this year when I did it. I did it in the league game this year in Ennis,
Oh,
and I
sugar.
was after the game. I was like, look, I was telling the Brian O'Connell, the physio, I was like, look, I'm done here, Brian. And he's like, look, how would you feel in a couple of months when you're going into Clarny, watching the lads, like, and you had an opportunity to get it right? How would you feel? And I was like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
I'll give it
yeah,
one more whack here.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I've had that conversation a few times as well. It's not nice, and I find it hard. I don't know if you did, but you get jealous of the people, whether it's your teammates or even I watch random teams and I'm like, what? Like I get so jealous of players. I don't even know
Yeah.
them. It's like because they can play and you can't, and it's really shite sitting on the sideline. But do you feel like, but through your injury, is there any particular lesson you've learned from sport or from injury?
Um, I kind of focused on other aspects of life as well. Like, spent more time with my friends, and they kind of started coaching with Douglas GA Club as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's kind of, when I was younger, like GA was absolutely everything, every decision. Like even my undergrad, I was supposed to go back and do like repeat the leaving cert to try and get medicine first time round,
Oh,
but I
okay.
made the Cork Senior, and then I was like, look, I can go in the back door here and play Cork Senior as well.
Yeah.
So I made kind of every decision based around football, and I wouldn't go back and change anything, but I'd also realize that there's other things to life than football as well.
Yeah. Do you ever get burnt out? As you said there, you're making every decision in terms of football. Do you ever get burnt out and kind of, is it worth it at any stage as an intercounty footballer?
Not really. The only time is when I'm doing the rehab. I'm like, is it really worth it? But then when you get back playing like in Killarney or in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, there's no kind of other buzz that can replace that. And I know like I'll only have say 6-7 years max left playing, so I'm just going to try and give everything I can while I can.
Yeah. Would you ever go into like sports medicine with all your experience and having gone to the UK?
That's kind of the plan.
Is it?
Kind of yeah.
Very good.
So that's that, and I'm hoping to go away to Australia to kind of learn over there as well. When I've qualified, so hopefully now that is the plan, to go into sports medicine and kind of teach people what I've kind of learned along the way.
Brilliant. And you'll definitely be able to relate to the athlete because you've gone through sport and injury, whereas let's say a consultant who maybe wouldn't have maybe the same, they would have obviously the knowledge, but they wouldn't have the same maybe emotional understanding that you've gone through so many injuries that like you can relate to your athletes a little bit more in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Even with Johnny Holland, he's an athlete, but the fact he's been through so many injuries, it kind of felt like, okay, he knows where I'm at now. Like he knows he was in this headspace before and he's out of it now. So that's why you kind of listen. You'd listen more to those type of people.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Australia, you were selected as part of the 2017 international rules team. Talk us through that. What was that experience like, and getting to go with some of the top intercounty players and I guess see them? Normally you obviously wouldn't see the likes of the Donegal lads at every day, but what did you pick up maybe from that experience?
It was kind of, I was only 19 at the time, so I didn't really kind of register how cool and class it was at the time. But I just remember I was marking for training games. I was marking Conor McManus for 67-minute games, and marking him, you can't replicate marking the best forward in the country. But it was over in Australia. It was just you got to live like a professional athlete for 2.5 weeks, and it kind of gave you a sense of what, if the GA did go professional, what it would be like. And I would love to see. Well, I don't think I'll see it in my time anyway, but I'd love to see it go professional and kind of give it back.
How did you find Conor McManus? What made him so difficult to mark? What makes him really special?
His runs, he'd make a run. He wouldn't make just one run. He'd make one run to make space for himself and then go back into that space, or he'd make a run to make space for Michael Murphy in full forward and then come off the loop. It's hard to describe, but he'd get a yard of space and he'd just shoot. You couldn't even give him a yard of space, which and then you just bring it back to club level then, and kind of, I felt like that did bring me on massively with Cork then, because I kind of knew this is what the best forward is doing. So as a defender, I know what I need to do.
Is he one of the most intelligent players you played against, or is there someone else that's kind of stood out for you?
He would probably be him or Michael Murphy. The two of them were just kind of, their attention to detail was just a different level. I remember Michael Murphy was talking, there was one session before we played Australia the first game, and he put up a clip of their fullback trying to catch a ball, and he was like, look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to run into him with my chest and then back. And I remember I think it was third or fourth ball in, he did exactly that, and we got a point off it. And it's just okay, this fella knows his shit.
That's class. And just seeing that level of detail, was there much in terms of the training and preparation? Obviously the squad, you went to Australia for 2.5 weeks, but what was that training like and being over there? And did you do much video, and how did you find getting used to the different rules? I know it's a combination of both. Thankfully you still had the round ball. I don't know if the AFL ball would have suited the GA lads.
No, it was a bit weird. At the time, the first game was a lot the referees didn't have the kind of same understanding. The Irish referee didn't really have the same understanding as rules as the Australian referee, so we got the referee with Australia let a lot more go than the Irish referee. Like I'm used to kind of taking on my man and kind of sidestepping, but the minute you try and sidestep, you're getting absolutely creamed. Like, so I learned fairly quickly that wasn't going to do. Like, but it was enjoyable. Like, I remember, like, after each quarter, you'd come in and do a quick video analysis session, which was quite cool. Like, they were
wow.
Look, this is where we're kind of gonna need to work on, which is very cool. And I wonder, is it a kind of thing for GA in the future?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. Well, how did you find the having multiple referees? Do you think that's something that the GAA should look at going forward?
As a defender,
oh no, yeah. I'm asking the wrong person here.
As a defender, no, but probably for rules' sake, it would be a lot more beneficial, and you'd see a lot more kind of kicking and open play. But as a defender who likes kind of to be very tight, no, I wouldn't like to see a referee more than one referee.
Yeah. How do you find the mark as a defender? What do you think of that rule change?
I think it makes defending a lot more difficult, because you can't really mark from behind anymore, or you can't really mark from the side. You're either out in front, and even if they do kick it over you, there's a mark. They have the opportunity to have a mark, so it is a lot more difficult for defenders. But it is working. There is a lot more kicking going on, and I think teams are looking to utilize the mark, which I think that's what it was brought in for. So it's kind of serving its purpose, but it is making defending a lot harder.
So would you like to see the mark go as a defender?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm not sure about it. It's I thought I was actually really skeptical of the midfield mark at the beginning, and I was like, that's terrible. That's not gonna work. Worked really well in the end. I think we might need another year of the attacking mark just to kind of see how it goes. But kind of looking towards football. I suppose with the Cork team last year, you beat Kerry. Talk us through that. I know you spoke a little bit previously about the papers and kind of word of mouth. You know, they were already looking ahead to Dublin, and they had, you know, you spoke before that they were kind of playing towards that style. As an intercounty footballer, do you look at, let's say, leading up to a match, if you hear, oh, geez, you know, Kerry are going to abolish Cork, is that something that plays into your motivation a little bit?
100%. Like, you're gonna, if people are gonna kind of doubt you, you're gonna be like, right, I'll kind of show you and up yours kind of thing. We kind of knew the minute, I think they made, just before the game, they replaced Stephen O'Brien with Brian Begley, who's an out and out cornerback. Like, and it was a kind of like, right, they're planning for Dublin here. Let's show them that we're here for a fight. Like, and I think we did that last year, but we kind of let ourselves down this year then.
Yeah, a little bit. How did you find not having fans last year and getting them back in this year? Does it actually have much of an effect on a game? And I suppose going back to even before COVID, is that something that would have maybe factored into a game at all?
When you're in the game, you don't really notice. When there was no fans, you didn't really notice it. But when we played down in Killarney, you'd notice there was a kind of,
okay,
there was a bigger excitement, like when you turn over a ball and you'd hear people roaring, or you'd score a goal. Like, it does that. You'd miss it. Like, you'd miss it when you get it back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And as an intercounty footballer with college and other things going on, how do you find discipline, and how to, like, you're missing out on, let's say, socialising, you have to eat really well, sleep really well. How do you find the discipline of being an intercounty footballer, but the freedom of being a college student and enjoying yourself?
It is extremely difficult. When you're living in, like, all my housemates now are they're all in my class, and they're all kind of college students now, so they're all having fun at the moment. And I'm in the middle of club championship, so like when I have to, I just go home to Cork and sleep at Cork, and then come back up in the morning.
Oh, right.
But I kind of learn, you kind of have to learn how to say no to things, and just learn how to say, just kind of, how do I say it? You have to put yourself first and kind of put your priorities, saying, is football, do I actually want to win with Cork, or do I want to go out and socialise with my friends for the week? And I think at the moment my priorities is Cork and Douglas and football.
Mm-hmm. Were you always this motivated and disciplined, or is that something you had to maybe work on?
No, to be fair, I was probably too, I was on the other side of it. I was probably too disciplined. I kind of,
okay,
everything was kind of geared around football, and I wouldn't even go to, like, say if it was a week before championship, I wouldn't even go out to see my friend's birthday party or anything. It was kind of right after championship in a week. That's it. All my decisions were based on championship. Like, for my first 2 years of intercounty, I didn't even eat a piece of chocolate. Like,
Oh wow.
so it was
Jesus.
I was on the other edge of the spectrum, like.
Right.
But now, I like, even with the injury, I think that did help kind of find the balance between enjoying life and enjoying football.
Okay, right. That's mad even about the chocolate. Do you think that kind of, were you trying to nearly with that get a mental edge, be like, do you know, like those little small things like not eating chocolate, let's say, or like not going out a week before championship, was that nearly to get as well as a physical advantage, like a mental kind of one up on your opponent?
Yeah, 100%. Like when I went into those games, I was like, "There's no way you've prepared more than me," kind of thing.
Okay.
While now I'm kind of going in knowing I've my head's in a good place and my body's in a good place, rather than kind of scared of. I was kind of scared of not doing everything right. Well, now I'm
Okay.
kind of enjoying it,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
I know what you mean. I'm interested to hear, I've asked a couple of people now on the podcast, but from your academic and sporting background, is football more physical or mental?
I would say a lot. I'd say more mental, to be honest.
Okay.
Um, I like you like, I was remember for that Kerry game, I was only back 2 weeks and I was so unfit. Like, but I remember I constantly during the week I was like, I'm going to play 70 minutes. I'm going to play 70 minutes. And I remember I got through the 70 minutes, and the minute we came back out after extra time, I cramped. The first, like, literally the first run, I cramped, and I didn't even, like, we played an A versus B the week before, and I didn't even last 20 minutes. I was so tired, I was wrecked.
Okay.
And I remember for the whole week I was just trying to convince myself 70 minutes is all you have to do. And I just convinced myself I was going to get through those 70 minutes. And I think it is, like, it's a lot more mental than people actually give it credit for.
Okay, interesting. And do you think that's something that we maybe overlook, maybe as players? And is there anything in particular, like you said, even there, just that positive affirmation of just last 70 minutes, last 70 minutes?
Yeah, like I do. Well, I think there is a shift towards kind of the psychological aspect now. With,
Mm.
I know most teams, most intercounty teams anyway, have psychologists, and I know, like, this with my club now, Douglas, this is the first year we got a psychologist. So I think there is
Oh,
a
okay.
kind of shift towards the mental aspect as well, which can only benefit some players. But I know some players don't buy into that as well. They're kind of
Okay.
still based old school, kind of
Yeah,
get
yeah.
out
On
there and run kind of thing.
yeah, on the fence of it. What do you think what do you think separates intercounty and club these days? Like you even mentioned there, your club has a psychologist in. Like obviously the gap I think is narrowing nearly, whereas but again intercounty's gone to another level. What do you think is the biggest difference between, let's say, a club or an intercounty footballer and the setup? Aside from let's say from the funding and the obvious things.
I think one of the main is just decision making under pressure.
Okay.
Like, you'd see it now, like in the club games I went to, like last week. Now, like, when the games are tight, the people who kind of step up and make the right decision at the right time are the kind of intercounty fellas. While you might have, like, a very very good club player kind of panic and shoot at the last minute kind of thing. So I think
Okay.
it is, like, and I think that's back again to the mental aspect, is kind of making decisions under pressure.
Okay, so if I was a club manager listening, or maybe let's say an underage coach, how do I teach my players to make decisions under pressure?
Um, Kind of game-based scenarios. Like with Douglas now, we're constantly, say, or like our session yesterday. Now we were our coach said, this is a scenario, we're 4 points down with 5 minutes to go. How do we go? And he just said, go, off you go,
Okay,
and either defend the lead or kind of attack the lead. And, like, that's the scenarios we put in games, and you can't really replicate. It's hard to replicate it in training, but I think that's the best way to do it, is kind of game-based scenarios.
okay. I'm going to go off on a slightly random one here, but I'm going to ask you for a book recommendation for any of the listeners.
Book recommendation. The 5 a.m. Club. I really like that one. Or I think Jim Stein's, he was the Aussie Rules fella. I loved his book as well.
Very good. Did you read Atomic Habits? I think that's like the book of 2020 and lockdown.
Yes, I've read I read that one as well. That like, I've used some of his kind of methods as well in kind of my study as well. Like he talks about like setting your environment, so I'd wake up and have my laptop open ready just for before I start, so I know I'll have to sit down and study straight away when I get up in the morning, or else I just stay in bed and play on my phone.
Yeah. I'm definitely guilty of that. That's interesting. Is there anything else you took from his book?
What else did I do? Setting my environment. That's kind of the main one. And like even he was talking about like starting, like even if it was 30 seconds of study, like, and then it'll go to 2 minutes, like just starting it is a massive step in actually building a habit. Just sitting down and even like putting vegetables on the kitchen table rather than having like 7 up there. Because I do like, I know I said I didn't eat chocolate for 2 years, but I have a massive sweet tooth, so now I have to watch myself. Like,
right, yeah. What would be your like cheat meal? Let's say in the off season, in case anyone's listening from Cork.
Obviously, yeah. It would be pepperoni pizza. I love pizza, so that would be my cheat meal.
Yeah, very good. I'm going to move on to the sideline 7. It's the same 7 questions at the end of every podcast. Question 1: what is your favorite quote?
I just back to Johnny Wilkinson again. It was all of me in every moment. So it's kind of just like win the moment in front of your face kind of thing.
Have you listened to his high performance podcast? I don't know if that's from that episode. Was that same episode?
That's from the same episode, yeah.
That stuff, oh my God, just blew my mind. I actually have, I listened to it in segments and I'm still going through most of it because it's actually too much to unpack in, I think, the hour and a half. Yeah, you'd be overloaded like with all the stuff he's saying.
Yeah, I've listened to it a good 3 or 4 times now. But like it is top class, and it just like when you see a fellow who's won with the World Cup, you're gonna listen to him like, and you're gonna say, right, this fella was obsessed, but he's like he reckons he would have played better if he enjoyed it more. So I'm like, right, I'm gonna take a leaf out of his book now and just enjoy it.
Very good. Do you listen to any other podcasts, or is High Performance Podcast number 1 at the moment?
I listen to the Science of Sport podcast with Ross Tucker as well. He kind of just talks about like recovery and loads of different kind of aspects of like the doping, anti-doping, the WADA stuff, and the Casta Semenda, the runner with the testosterone levels. He talks about that stuff as well, which I think is very cool.
Okay, I have to check that out. Have you seen what's that thing on Netflix? Icarus, I think. Is that
Icarus? Yeah.
Oh, what a documentary. That was really good, actually, I have to say.
It was, yeah. I don't think like even the fella who made it didn't expect that to come, like the Russian fella, to help him that much. But it is insane what actually goes on in cycling and in sport in general.
Yeah, it is. Question 2: best sporting event you've been to?
The best sporting event, I think it was the 2017 All-Ireland final, Mayo Dublin, where I think Dean Rock slotted the last minute free.
Yeah.
That was just, the atmosphere was insane. That was definitely the best. Or maybe I was at the 2010 All-Ireland final where Cork won. So I'd have to pick Cork, to be fair.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Is there any particular match you've played in that kind of stands out as your favourite?
My favourite game would probably be in either my debut, just for the fact that it was my dream to always play for Cork, or I remember we played Mayo might have been 2017 as well, in the Gaelic grounds, and we took them to extra time. And I remember I scored a goal that day, and it was kind of like my first proper inter-county game where I felt like I'm actually up to this level kind of thing.
Okay, yeah. You mentioned there trying to enjoy matches. Do you still get nervous before a game and all, even club matches? Do you find you get the butterflies in the stomach?
I wouldn't get nervous, but I definitely get excited. We've championship now on Saturday, and I'm excited now. I just can't wait to kind of play, because I've missed so much already, and I just can't wait to enjoy and play a match now.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Question 3: biggest setback or challenge so far in your career? I think I already know the answer to this one.
Yeah, definitely the injuries. But it has helped me in my life, and I feel like I've got a lot of resilience and kind of determination from that, and I feel like I've helped other players who've had bad hamstring injuries as well. So I feel like it happened for a reason, and I feel like I'm kind of over it now, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give the lads that are going through injury, let's say a hamstring or something else?
Just the only advice really would just keep at it. I feel like if if you keep at something, it will get right up. Like, I know some medical people might disagree, but I genuinely think if you keep at it, it will get right, especially with hamstrings and like sports injuries. If you just do the work, it will get right. And sometimes less is more, is what I was told.
Okay. Your biggest achievement on or off the pitch?
My biggest achievement would probably have been obviously making my senior debut, but I think even captaining. I was the captain of the Cork Minors in 2016, I think, and that was kind of my biggest kind of accolade. And even this year now, I'm the captain of the Douglas Seniors, Douglas Senior footballers, which is massive because like you're playing with your best friends. Like, so when you're the captain, you're your best friends. There's not much better than that, I think.
Yeah. What are your pre-game speeches like?
Oh, I wouldn't be one for speeches now. I'd be more just, I'll do my talking on the pitch kind of thing. But I'd leave my speeches to Kevin Flav now. He loves talking, so I'd leave it to him. Okay.
Out of interest, why do you think they made you captain at the minor age group and this year? Is there any particular reason why you think, they kind of look to you as a leader of the team?
Maybe because like when going gets tough, I kind of like love. I love when the going gets tough and kind of wanting the ball and wanting to make stuff happen. Well, some people kind of go into their shell. I'd be like, right, let's give it a crack here and let's see what I can make happen. And I feel like I've done that in a few situations, and they've hopefully taken notice of that and kind of saw that as a kind of good quality.
Okay, interesting. Looking back, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Definitely enjoy it more because it flies. Like I'm going into my 7th year now with Cork, and it only feels like yesterday when Kerrigan was running around me for 2-4. Like it flies, and I just say enjoy it while you can.
Brilliant. Dream dinner guest and why? And you can open up the table to a few people here.
Who would that be now? It would probably be, I'd say LeBron James, or I'd say Tiger Woods, just for actually Johnny Wilkinson. I'd throw Johnny Wilkinson in there as well. I'd like to understand a bit more about his kind of mentality, but obviously Tiger Woods is like, he's the best of the best at his game, and I kind of want to learn how he got to the top kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Are you a basketball fan?
I wouldn't be a massive basketball fan, but I'd be a fan of kind of what he has done in the sport and kind of what he kind of represents. LeBron,
yeah. Last question before I let you go. If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
Jeez, that's a good question.
I can't take credit. I keep saying this, but I've robbed this from another podcast. I just want to make this clear to all the listeners. It's not my intelligence. I robbed it.
What chapter would this be called? I'm going to say the redemption, maybe, from the injury, because I kind of feel like I have to prove myself again because I've been out for so long. It's kind of, I'm back to I feel like I'm kind of back to the start of my Cork career now again, going to prove myself, especially with like a new manager coming in this year. It kind of feels like, right, we're back to square one here, which like that kind of excites me. It's just a new challenge, but maybe the redemption, I suppose.
Very good. Look, Sean, thanks a million for your time. I know you're a busy man. I just want to wish you the very best of luck on and off the pitch with everything, and thanks again.
Thanks a million, Laura.
A massive thank you to Sean for joining me today. I just want to wish him the very best of luck both on and off the pitch. If you did enjoy the episode, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a rating and a review over on Apple Podcasts, as it does help the show grow. Please do check out thesidelinelive.com for more content. There is a new blog with articles coming from coaches and players with some really cool content on the way. As always, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.